Alright, so this is going to be part 5 of a series about how the NHL franchise and the NHL EA property can maybe, with its franchise mode and its depth in franchise mode, help out the Madden team and their franchise mode. And today we're going to be looking at scouting. This is going to be a pretty in-depth video. I'm having to record this and upload it, so if anybody was wanting to tune in live, I'm sorry, you won't be able to watch it live. But I'm going to record it and then put it out on the back end. Right now we're looking at the scouting screen, and as you can see, we've got a list of scouts here. I'm going to look at a different guy because I've been looking at the same guy a couple of times now. You won't know that, but I do, and now you do too. So we're going to look at Mr. Kirill Smirnov here, and you'll note he prefers to be in Russia, which kind of makes sense with the name. And if you look, he's got a lot of different region familiarity grades that vary from A plus to E. A plus being the best, E being the worst. So you can see he's got a lot of different groupings of regions. You've got NHL, AHL, USA Europe, CHL, Russia, and Nordic. Okay, and he's got a couple of good grades in the Nordic region. You see he's got Liga A+, All Svenskan A+, Rest of the World A+. He's got a couple of B's and C's. It'll come into more play later when I show what you can do with your scouts. But keep in mind that it's really good to have a scout that has a wide variety of regions because you can actually kind of be able to move them around as you need to depending on where prospects are. So now we're going to flip over to evaluation abilities. Evaluation abilities are simply the scout's ability to scout certain groupings of attributes. And to break it down real quick, each player has a grouping of attributes that go into one of 6 major categories: shooting, senses, puck skill, physical, defense, and skating. And those are your skaters. Those are your forwards and your defensemen, essentially the offensive players of the team. And that's your grades for each of those as far as basically he's middle of the road. And then you have goalies are rated in 3 groupings of ratings called reflexes, athletics, and puck control. And again, he is basically across the board a C grade. However, if I were to place this gentleman in a place that he is familiar with, such as Russia, or even some of the Nordic leagues where he's got an A+, these ratings actually get a little bit of a boost. So you would actually see a better performance from him in areas that he's very familiar with. Conversely, if I were to put him in an area like the OHL or the QMJHL where he is completely unfamiliar, those ratings would actually take a hit. So he'd actually be a worse scout in those areas and a much better scout in the areas he's familiar with. So it kind of makes sense in a way that this guy wants to be in Russia, he wants to be in Eastern Europe. So those Eastern Europe and Russian leagues he's really familiar with, and because of that, he would actually get a boost to these evaluation abilities when he were scouting in that area. And this is just a list of anybody I can hire. The basics are here, overalls, and the same thing we saw on the big screen that I just showed you with the evaluation abilities. That's what you can see here. So if you want a snapshot of a certain type of person, you can look here. You can also see what region they're most familiar with in this list. And if you want to specify, maybe you're looking for somebody just for one of the Canadian Hockey League teams, or Canadian Hockey Leagues, I should say. So like the OHL, here's a list of all the OHL scouts, or the scouts that prefer the OHL the most. Not necessarily the only place they prefer. For example, I'll click on Mr. Whitfield here. You can see he actually would do the WHL pretty decent as well. And also some of the USA regions, he would do pretty well as well. So you can move this guy around a little bit. Okay, so that just gives you an idea of the basics of how to hire a scout. And if you look at the bottom, on the right-hand side, you'll see my scout salary. In the offline franchise, you can overpay over your budget for scouting salary, but if you're in owner mode, you cannot exceed that budget unless you meet some type of criteria that the owner increases the budget. So essentially, you cannot exceed that budget in owner mode, but in non-owner mode, which is what I'm currently in, obviously, you can exceed that budget. I would suggest if you implement something like this for Madden, no matter if it's owner mode or not, that budget should not be exceeded. Okay, that would be something I would suggest both to the NHL staff and to the Madden staff, is not to have that budget be exceeded in any circumstances. That way it keeps the playing field level. And an offline franchise, I can't just go and hire the best scouts that are available and just spend whatever amount of money because, well, I don't have to care about the budget, whereas the CPU teams do. So that would be something I would change definitely for NHL, but especially in Madden if you implement this kind of scheme, definitely make a budget and stick to it. You can't go over that budget. You will see I have scouts in a variety of areas: the NHL, the AHL, which is the minor league of the NHL, USA, which is not minor league, but amateur prospects. So these are prospects in, like, think of colleges in the United States. Then I have the CHL, which is the Canadian Hockey League. That's a semi-pro setup in Canada. And you have three different leagues that comprise the Canadian Hockey League, which is the OHL, the QMJHL, and the WHL. And then you have Europe, you have Nordic, and you have Russia. And Europe, in and of itself, has four different leagues. The Nordic region has three different leagues, and Russia has Russia and the rest of the world. So there's a grouping in Russia as well of two different distinctions under that Russian umbrella. Now you see that breakdown. That's my breakdown of the scouts I currently have on under contract. So when I bounce out to here, I will state for the record that we do have automatic scouting on in this franchise. I do not have it to manual scouting. I did it with this franchise because this is a franchise I started and I wanted to just get it to a certain point to show you guys what it looks like in general. But you can turn off the ability for scouts to function as far as automatically. So in an online league, you may want to do that to encourage more engagement from your players to get on the game and actually do some work over the year as far as scouting goes. I would definitely encourage that for online franchise in particular. You'll see I have all my guys assigned out. Now let's just take a look at this real quick. You'll see this guy right here is in the Allsvenskan region. Basically, that's a Nordic league. He's got an A+ for that particular setup. He's also an A- overall scout. And right now, he is currently looking to discover prospects. He is looking for any position, any playing style that's a late first-round pick. Because that's not exactly where I'm going to be picking, but I do have a pick in the late first round. So he's looking for guys that I might be able to pick up in the late first round with that extra first-round pick I have that I traded for in this particular franchise. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually go in and tell him to do something else. And I'll go in real quick just to kind of show you what all you can do with each scout. Each of the 20 scouts can do this. Amateurs and pros function a little differently. So I'll show you amateurs first. Any amateur scout has the same type of functionality, so just keep that in mind. So we're going to go look at find prospects and position. So picture this for Madden. Picture being able to go, you know what, I'm going to look for quarterback, or I'm going to look for running back, wide receiver, offensive line, tight end, offense in general, defense in general, specific defensive positions. Now, obviously, I don't have that many positions in hockey, but picture being able to go through all that and then doing a general offense or a general defense, or maybe even break it down to a general front seven for defense, back end for defense, front five for offense. That's offensive line. But being able to do that and choosing what you scout is wonderful. And if you break it down to a specific position or position group, you can actually break it down and drill it down even further. So picture forwards being offensive line in Madden. Would you like to go for a brawler, a run defender, a run blocker? Would you want to go for somebody who's maybe more of a pass blocker? Do you want to go for somebody who's balanced? Do you want to go for somebody who's got athletic skill but maybe is a raw talent? Just those different types of prospects and their playing style, you could dictate out. You want to go for somebody who might draw a lot of penalties. But you can actually, in this game, in the forward group, you can pick between all the different playing styles. And if you want to look for just anybody, you can do that, specifically forwards. Or maybe defensemen. Maybe I want a defensive defenseman, an offensive defenseman, an enforcer defenseman, a two-way defender. So I can choose this as well. So, or a goalie. Maybe I want a stand-up goalie or a butterfly goalie. In this case, don't focus so much on if you don't know what any of these playing styles mean. Just think of them in Madden terms. Think about looking, for a gunslinger quarterback, or think about looking for a high arm strength quarterback, maybe just a strong arm quarterback. Think about those archetypes that are currently in the game, and picture those as playing styles that you could go scout out. So you could just look for strong arm quarterbacks if that's your cup of tea. If you're a guy that likes fast wide receivers, go look for deep threat wide receivers and focus on just that. And then you get to prospect quality. Do you care what prospect quality you're looking for? Do you want a particular round you're looking for? Okay, maybe I'm looking for a fast wide receiver and I want somebody third or fourth round. It's not a need for me on offense in football, but maybe it's something I'm looking to pick up as a best player available third or fourth round. And then you have a duration. Now, depending on how good your scout is, they can get stuff done quicker. This guy's a really good scout, so he might be able to get done in a shorter period of time. But maybe I want him to scout the entire season. Just focus on just this for the entire season. I can set that up and I can do that and execute that. And then what happens is this guy will just basically focus on looking at those guys until I tell him otherwise for the entire season. And he will draw every ounce of information on those particular players for me and give me accurate results. And I'll explain what accurate results mean when I get to looking at the draft class itself. I'm not going to do this with this guy because I like what he's doing right now. But I want to also show you the other thing you can do, which you can see here. This guy is currently scouting specific players. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and I'm going to show you specific players to scout. So this guy is currently in the Russian region. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick him up and I'm going to scout specific players. And this will bring up every player that's in the Russian league that I can scout. This guy currently has 10 players that he's looking at. And if you look, his estimated date to finish is June 30th, 2021. That is really, really close to the draft. Okay, so he's going to be cutting it real close. And that's estimated. He may not be done by that time. He may actually need more time, which means it may flood into the draft scenario. So I may have to go in a little bit blind. So let's say I want to add a little bit to his play. I'm going to look through here. And the nice thing is that it shows you all the names. It shows you their position there on the left-hand side, their name, their scout ranking. This is a generic scouting service ranking that every player is given, so I can kind of get a look at it, a general idea. What do they think they're going to be picked at? What does this generic scouting service think they're going to be picked at? This is going to be the 19th pick in the draft, 20th pick in the draft, 24th. Just that alone in Madden would be great. Just having that general scouting class. But here's the best part. As I scout, my scout will give them a ranking based upon their skill and their views. So you can see this guy is viewed to be 94th by this generic scouting service. However, my guy thinks he's the 93rd best player available. And he is locked in 100% accurate on that assessment. So this guy actually projects slightly better than what the generic scouting service says he will be. And then you have this guy, Samsonov, projected 74th overall. I have him, based on my scouts, I have him projected as a 72nd pick in the draft. So already we're seeing some difference and disparities between what my scouts say that this player is and what the actual scouting service, the generic scouting service, says they are. So I want to add somebody. Let's get a look at this guy. So now I can pick this guy, and now I have a total other thing I have to pick on. Do I want to know this player's playing style? Do I want to know their strengths and weaknesses? Do I want to have a skills assessment of this player? Do I want to know a character assessment of this player? What does this player think? How do they feel, generally speaking? What's their mental breakdown like? And then potential and comparison. Now, a lot of this may not make a ton of sense right now because you haven't seen it yet. But when I get to the draft board, it'll tie together a little bit. But I can choose any of these. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't find out information on all this other stuff. So, for example, if I look at potential and comparison for this player, that doesn't mean that that's the only thing I'm going to find out about this player. It does depend on the scout's skill, but I will find out a little bit of information about his character, his skills, his strengths and weaknesses, his playing style, as I scout the thing I'm scouting. So you can see all those players on the right-hand side, they're all potential and comparison scouting. Okay? That doesn't mean that that's all I'm going to find out about those players. I'm going to find out a little bit of other stuff, but my main focus was their potential and what NHL comparison do they have. What player do they compare to from currently or from the past that I can maybe attribute and, hey, okay, that would be a good player. For example, because most people probably know the name Wayne Gretzky. If you see a player with a Wayne Gretzky comparison, they're probably going to be pretty good. So you could probably kind of bank on picking that player and having them be a part of your franchise for many, many years to come. Okay, so that's just an idea of what you can do with scouting. And remember, I currently have it set to automatic, so all these guys are doing automatically stuff that they see as the best thing for them to do at the time. The other thing I want to show is all those choices I've been showing you have been amateur scouts. You also have pro scouts. And in pro scouting, you can do scout-specific players. So let's say the trade deadline's coming up, and you want to know about players and how they would fit on your team. This is where you would go to find out. You would pick a player, pick a division they're in. So, for example, picture the NHL Atlantic as it's the NFC. Oh boy, Atlantic is on the left. I had to think about that a second. Or no, Atlantic's on the right. I'm sorry. See, look at that. Geography. I'm a master of geography. So basically, this would be East Coast side. You'd be looking at basically the NFC East. Kind of picture it like that. So essentially, I could go in and scout a specific player. So let's say there's a player on the Giants or the Cowboys or the Eagles. I can go in and pick that player by doing this. Scout a specific player. What team do they play for? Find the team in the division. Okay? So let's say Buffalo Sabres. So now I can go look at every player on the Buffalo Sabres, and that's pretty much what I do. So basically I put, okay, Florida Panthers, Montreal Canadiens. I pick a specific team, and they scout those players for that team specifically. Or I can pick a group of players. So let's go in and pick a group of players. Do I want a quick report? So do I just want a snapshot of the team? Or do I want a complete report? Do I want every detail I can possibly garner and desire? Okay? What team? Do I want a specific team? Or do I want everything? Do I want the entire division? Now, with the entire division, what you'll do is essentially you'll basically look at every team in the entire division and you'll get a complete report on it. The complete report will vary depending on how long you send the scout out for. Just like with amateur scouts, you can send them out for the entire season if you want to. So that way, the entire season, they're compiling information on everybody. And you can even make it specific. How old? Maybe you're looking for young prospects. Maybe you're looking for guys because you're in a rebuild. So you want guys that aren't too old that you can grow with. So maybe you're looking for guys from 17 to 22. Position. Just like with amateur scouting, you can pick a certain position or positional group, and you can scout that way. If you pick a specific position, like forwards, you can then go in and do playing style, just like you could with amateurs. A lot of this is very much like amateurs until we get to player role. Now you can specify what role you're looking for. So let's say I'm at the trade deadline and I need a guy who's a top line player that I can put in and plug in on my first line and be just, bam, knock it out of the park. First line forward. Second line forward. Maybe I'm looking for a guy that fits the top 6. Top 9 guy. A bottom line guy. Maybe I'm looking for a tough guy. Maybe I'm looking for an enforcer fourth line forward. I need a tough guy to basically protect my little guys from getting smashed all over the place. So maybe that's what I'm looking for. Or maybe I'm just looking for some depth for the playoffs. Maybe that's all I'm looking for. Just guys that can sit on the bench that I can plug in at a forward position. If I get injuries, which will occur, I can throw in a guy and I can feel confident that he's good. Okay? Well, after this, and you can go down to as far as other forward, which is basically just a guy. Potential. I want franchise, top end potential. We've talked about potential in another video. Elite level potential. Not quite top end, but I want a guy that's elite. Top 6 forward. Now, bear in mind, I'm looking at forwards right now, so these grades are going to be slightly different from defensemen. Top 9 forward. Bottom 6 forward. AHL guys, if I really want to go that far. Okay, you can see how much potential there is. And then if I go to defense, pass it up, franchise, elite, top 4 defensemen, top 6 defensemen, 7 defensemen, so on and so forth. AHL being the minor league system. So I can look for whatever I want. And this guy or girl, this is a guy in this case, you do have female scouts. Kind of progressive thinking, I like that. And then the last thing pending free agency. Are they going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, meaning that I'm getting a rental player? So basically, I'm getting a guy for just the season to basically push me over the edge and get me to that Super Bowl, or get me to that playoff, or get me to that championship, and then I might have to re-sign him and spend big money at the end of the season. Am I looking? Really? All right, sorry about that. I had a little bit of a hiccup there with remote play, but as I was saying, you have unrestricted free agent, which is simply like a rental. Then you have restricted free agency, which is another thing this game implements, which I may actually do another video on just to kind of detail how far behind Madden is. But restricted free agency simply means that this is a player that at the end of the season, I actually have right of first refusal on, so I can actually give him a qualifying offer, let him test free agency, and if he tests free agency and somebody tries to sign him, I can then either get draft pick compensation back, or I can sign the player for the contract that the other team signed him for and basically put him back under my wing. So it's kind of one of those things like, okay, I don't really want to let this player go, but it depends on what they sign him for as to whether or not I try and keep him or not. So that's a nice little thing that you can look for. Or you can look for a not free agent. Is there a guy under contract for next season, at least, that I can pick up? So can I pick up a long-term guy that I may want to add to my roster that I don't have to worry about fiddling with in the off season coming up? So you can look at all this stuff, or you can just say, whatever. I'll choose whatever I want. So I can pick all these options, and like I said, the duration, and this scout will go pick based upon my preferences anybody that I find or anybody that fits this mold, and will return to me with reports. Okay, and that's important for Fog of War. And if you're not familiar with Fog of War, I'm going to show you what it's kind of like here in just a second with the draft class. Okay, by going into View Draft Class, now you can see that the top pick in this draft is going to be a guy by the name of Adrian Leach. He is a left defenseman. He's a left-handed shot, 5'10", 178. You can see all that good stuff at the top. That's stuff that you always have information on. What you don't always have information on, however, is the stuff that starts right about here, potential. This guy is listed as a medium elite potential. He is also listed as a two-way defenseman. And scout rank, my scouting rank, has him number 1 maybe. And then the generic scout rankings have him at number 1. So he's the consensus just about number 1 pick. Excuse me. But what do I mean by kind of? If you look, you see those binoculars. Those binoculars indicate scouting accuracy. And there's a bar next to it, and it goes from 1 bar to 4 bars. The 4 bars means that this guy is locked down 100%. That's his, whatever rating you're looking at, that's what he is. So, for example, he's got 4 bars next to the binoculars for TWD. That stands for two-way defenseman. This is a guy who's good both offensively and defensively. Okay? The scouting rank, however, the number 1 is he got slightly grayed out. And that's because it's got 3 bars. They're pretty sure they're about 75% accurate on that ranking, but it's not 100. That's Fog of War. Okay? That's what Fog of War means, is that I don't always have 100% concrete information just because I've scouted. Now, if you look in the top left, you'll see a yellow bar, and you'll see it's currently being scouted by Malachi Ranford. That's what's scrolling across. That means I'm currently scouting this player. So that means that could become a full 4 bars for Scout Rank 1. And another thing that your draft class does in NHL that I would love to see in Madden is the fact that it tells you what region they're in, USA East in this case, and it shows you player stats. So even if I don't scout this player at all, I'll show you a player I haven't scouted so you can get an idea. I will see those numbers. So I can even look at a guy's numbers and go, this is the guy I want, or this is the guy I don't want. Okay, so I'm going to scroll down. You can see these are strengths and weaknesses, okay? And then you see the attributes there at the bottom. Those are those groupings of attributes. You see I'm perfectly accurate on all this stuff. So I can look right here and go, okay, his strength, shutdown ability. He's a good defender. Heavy slap shot. So from the point, he can slap the puck and get it going. Great puck mover. Good passing skill. Weaknesses, teammate utilization. So maybe not the best vision in the world for other players, but he can hit the puck hard from the point. He has shutdown ability as far as defense-wise, and he's a good passer. That's a pretty good set of MOs. And you can have, obviously, you can have up to 3 strengths and 3 weaknesses, and the weaknesses vary from player to player. And then you can see all his attributes. All of them are 4-starred out, so this scout has pretty much did due diligence on this particular player. Why not? They're the first pick in the draft. Okay? Personality. Note it has 3 bars by it. So personality is a very passionate person, but gets emotional at times. He is driven to win. Okay? So these personalities can kind of affect locker room chemistry, because you do have locker room chemistry. I may try in this video to show you what that means as far as with my team. We'll see how far we get as far as recording wise. But this just means that this player, basically, he can kind of be a little bit of emotional firecracker. And then you see scheme fit. Cycle, shoot, cycle. Hole, pinch, pinch. If you've seen my coaching video, this basically is coach preferences. Okay, this is how he fits with the coach. This is what type of style this player likes to play. And then you got to look at it from the coaching perspective. Does he fit my coach's scheme? Would it be a guy that's going to clash with my coach's scheme? So that kind of makes it more like boom bust potential, because in real life, obviously, you can have number 1 overall picks that bust out because for whatever reason, either they just didn't get the right coaching, they didn't develop well. There's a lot of different factors, but one of the big ones is coaching and how they fit the coach's scheme that they get drafted to. Well, this kind of gives you an idea. Cycle and pinch, this is the defenseman, so there's not a lot of scheme fit capabilities. But I could go look at my coach, see his coaching style, and see if this guy would fit, and know exactly where this guy would fit at, because that scheme fit is 100% accurate. Potential, elite medium. This guy's going to get at his high end, he's going to get into the low 90s. And similar style. This is where you get to see what player, current or past, in the NHL, this guy is most favorable to. Victor Hedman. He is currently a player in the NHL. I will go look at him in just a second. And his NHL ETA. Is this player going to be ready in 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? No. When they come in, their overall is good enough to be a player in the NHL from day 1. Okay? That's all this screen tells you. That's a lot of information right there. That's great. Now, I'm not going to go through this entire list, but I'm going to flip this real quick. I'm going to flip this CS ranking. All right? I'm going to flip it. 1,364 prospects. And that doesn't count the fact that I am finding prospects even as we speak. So there could be more. There are only 7 rounds in the NHL. There are currently 31, about to be 32 teams, the same number as the NFL. So you can figure about 240, 250 picks. Okay? There are 1,364 prospects. That's a lot of prospects. You're not going to scout them all. Point blank, you're not going to scout them all. Okay? So you're going to have to go do some guesswork on some guys. So let's take a look at the worst player according to the CS rankings. Some guy named Tanner Wickware. Okay? He has not played. He has played nothing. He is a backup apparently. Okay? He has no stats. You can also look at the strength of competition is E. You can also see player style and scout rank are complete blanks. We haven't scouted him. There's a reason. He's 1,364. Okay? No report on this player. Excuse me. Do I want to scout him? I don't know. Do I want to scout him? No, probably not. I'm going to flip this back. But that tells you the depth of prospects. And you can see they vary wildly, and some of these guys are not 100% accurate. This guy is 75% accurate that he's an elite. Could be wrong, though. He could be top 4. And you can vary wildly from what you see here if you're not accurate to what you actually draft. This guy lists as AHL top 6 forward. This guy may actually be top 6. Or he may be AHL top 6 and a complete bust with the 8th overall pick in the draft. That would really break somebody's heart. Especially if you look, and you could have had this guy who's an elite sniper. You could have had him, instead you pick this guy and he's an absolute bust whenever your scout said, hey, pick this guy, he's going to be a stud. Okay? And you can flip through this and you can see, and also just to let you know, this draft board, you can sort by positions just like you can with, NFL and things of that nature. And you can go through and you can see, but let's pick a guy I haven't. Let's look at Logan Stankoven. Hi, Logan. Remember, I said that no matter how well you've scouted a player, because you can look, I'll flip through this guy kind of quick. You can see I haven't scouted him too well. Okay, he's got 2 bars, 1 bar, so I'm not really got eyes on this player too well. Okay, but one thing I always have is his stats and the competition strength of the league he's playing in. So he's playing in the WHL. The strength of competition there is a C minus, so a little bit below average. In a little bit below average league as a whole, he's played 56 games. He scored 18 goals and 23 assists. He's got 42 penalty minutes, a plus minus of 12, which is good, and time on ice at 18 minutes a game. So if you look at those stats, you go, that's pretty solid because 18 and 23 is 41. That's not quite a point per game, but that's about 3/4 of a point per game. That's pretty solid production, but it's a kind of average to below average league. Do I really want to spend a first round pick on this player who's played in average competition and not really dominated, but he's played well, but he's not dominating? So is this a guy I want to pick? Or let's see if I can find Russia? Yeah, okay. So or maybe I look at this guy. A plus competition. He's played in 41 games. He has 1 goal and 3 assists, 13 minutes a game. So he's not playing a ton, and he's not doing a whole lot when he's out there. Is this a guy I want to pick? He's playing an A plus competition, which I would consider NHL level quality. So this guy probably would be at his high peak. He'd probably be maybe a 3rd liner, maybe a 4th liner. I don't know. But let's go down a little bit further. Let's look at Mr. Helenaeus. Okay, here's another guy. 32 games played, 2 goals, 1 assist, 13 minutes a game. He's not playing a lot, so it's hard to kind of judge his stats. But you can look at this guy. Let's see if we can find Mr. Stankoven. You can come to this guy. This guy's starting. This guy's like a top 6 player based on the time on ice per game. Because 18 minutes is pretty high ice time for a forward. I mean, once you start getting above about 17 minutes a game, you're playing a lot. You're probably playing some power play. You're probably playing some penalty kills, some extra stuff. So when you look at that, this guy has the stats to back up picking him that high, whereas a guy, and I could flip by using the left and right triggers, the L2, R2. So this guy here, let's compare him. I mean, this guy's a center, can play left wing. This guy's a center. So now I can do comparisons in this draft class. And that's where your scouting comes in, because this guy is higher scouted. I have better scouting numbers on this guy, but you look at the top left, this guy is currently being scouted by somebody. So do I wait on her report to make a determination on whether or not this player fits my scheme based on player style and stats? Or do I just take the chance and go, you know what, I'm going to take this guy because I like his numbers. I'm not so sure about his stuff, but I got enough information that I can comfortably take this player. And that's what it comes down to. Drafting is part crapshoot and part best knowledge you have at your disposal. So if this were draft day, if I am on the clock right now and I'm looking at this draft board, I have to go with what I have right now based on this scouting reports. Do I take this guy who has about 20 minutes of ice time, so he's got more ice time, similar competitive league, similar draft stock? Now I start looking at sizes. Maybe I start looking at, went too far, sorry. Maybe I start looking at this stuff. Face-offs is a weakness. As a centerman, I want him to have face-offs. So that's probably, if I'm looking for a guy to play center, may not want this guy. He doesn't do face-offs well, according to the scout. Could be wrong. Or do I go with this guy? Offensive instincts. I kind of dig that. Explosive stride. That means they got a quick first step. I dig that as well. And now I can make these comparisons, and as you look, you remember the first overall pick was pretty much across the board. I knew exactly what it was. Now we're starting to get into gray territory here, and I'm having to go with a guy, okay, do I trust this scout? Do I trust this scout? Do I trust these answers versus these guys' answers? You can see there's some different onesies and twosies. And remember, one star, one tick by that binocular means 25% accuracy. That's not terribly accurate. So this guy's skating could be really higher or could be a little bit lower, not much lower than a D, but it could be a little bit higher. It could be significantly higher. I don't know. I'd have to take the player to find out the exact attributes. And that's where your fog of war element comes into play for scouting. Okay? And that's what makes scouting such an engaging aspect of this game because truthfully, at the end of the day, I'm not going to have all these guys scouted. In Madden, you could conceivably scout with their current scouting system about 80 players, give or take, maybe 5 to 10, depending on your scouting efficiency as far as what positions you can scout, as far as what you get a discount on for spending your scouting points. You can maybe scout about maybe 80 players if you do it every single week, starting with week 3, and every week is open until draft day. Okay, that's a lot of players, and unfortunately, everybody else is scouting players as well, which means that by the time you're done with the second round, everybody's going to have the top picks already done and dusted. With 1,300 prospects, it's going to be pretty difficult to get a gauge on players. I'm sorry if you heard that. I had to sneeze. All right. Ooh, I almost changed something. But also in the scouting report, your scouts can let you know gems, which are going to be better rated players than what's listed here. So this guy may actually be an elite player or a top 6 player. Not real sure, but he's going to be at worst a top 6 player. It's not very far from that. And you can also find busts, guys that are, if you don't have a good rating on them, a good gauge on them, picture them to be lower than what you see, significantly lower. Let's see if I can find any bust here. Okay, like this guy. He lists as a top 9. At best, he's probably going to be top 9. He'll probably be worse. And note that he is a 76th player in the draft. That's a 3rd round pick. So 3rd round pick being, say, a bottom 6 or even worse, an AHL guy, that's not a really good use of a 3rd round pick. That's basically you just drafted somebody that's going to be in the minors probably for their entire career. That would really suck for a 3rd round pick, which is a fairly valuable pick still in the draft. Now, obviously, I can sort by the general ranking, or I can sort by scouting ranking. But this is where your scouts really shine because you do have 1,300 prospects, and based upon the fact that I can go in and I can pick what gets scouted and when, I have to basically determine, because each time I scout, I add to that estimated date. If you look at the top there, estimated date June 24th, 2021. That is basically the time that this particular scout will get done with everything I've assigned to them. If I add more, that estimated date goes up. So you are on a time frame, and this time frame is affected by how good your scout is. Better scouts will get done quicker. So do you want your lower tier scouts, even scouts that are in an area that they're good in, will still take more time than a better scout in that area, even if they're a little bit lesser in the region. The region doesn't affect it as much as the overall does. The region familiarity will help this a little bit, but it still won't help it enough to really overcome a lot of problems you'll have with lower tier scouts, which is where you got to decide, where do your scouts go? But I haven't shown you how to change that. So let's go in right here. Let's go look at the USA East, and let's hit triangle to change region. Okay? Now we're going to get to the meat and potatoes of this. Here we go. You just thought we were talking Turkey earlier. Now we're really talking Turkey. Because now I can go in and I can assign this scout. And I can pick a league. Now, here's the thing. I don't know what this scout's good at. So let me back out. USA East, he's an A+. Is he good at anything else, though? Not really. Let's pick a different scout. Let's see. Let me find a scout that's good. USA East. Let me find a scout that's actually pretty decent. Okay, here we go. Let's pick this guy. All right. I'm not going to change it, but I just want to show you what you can do as far as your scouts and region familiarity. So, Aaron Awley, expert in the OHL, also an expert in the USA Central as far as their prospects in the USA amateur prospects. Okay, so let's say I feel like I might need some help in the central part of the United States as far as amateur prospects, college prospects. I go and hit change region. Now I can go to Europe, I can go Nordic, I can go Russia, I can go rest of the world, or I can stay in North America. For this scout, I'm going to stay in North America, but I'm going to try and pick up a scout that I can change regions on and change, so I can show you that too. So North America has the NHL, which is the pro side, AHL minor league side, CHL, amateur side. Note that they're marked professional and amateur. And then USA amateur. I have 3 scouts currently active in the USA. I can go in here and now take a look-see. Current assignment is the OHL, but this area has 13 forward prospects, 7 defensive prospects, and 2 goalie prospects. Okay? I will have to take time to travel, and there is a travel budget in this game, so be careful moving your guys around, because if you hit that travel budget, in owner mode, you can't travel anymore. In this mode, it's more flexible, but again, I would say in Madden, make that a locked-in, firm thing to where you can't exceed it, so you don't have guys just bouncing everybody back and forth to regions to help out. So you are limited in what you can do. The Central, take a look-see. 54 forwards, 25 defensemen, 5 goalies. A+. There's only 1 scout in the region, and a scout realistically in a season to draft scenario will probably scout at most accurately maybe about 20 to 30 prospects. Depending on the skill level, you might get a little more. So that's not a lot of time, and you can see there's a lot more players there than 20 to 30. So I might want to give this guy some help. So I can basically pick, and now it would tell me I need that much to travel, and it costs me 0 in travel budget because he's already in the United States. If I had to travel overseas, it'd be a different story. Okay? Or I can help out over here. 8, 7, and 0. This guy probably doesn't need any help. He can probably handle it on his own, whoever's here. All right? But let's go to North America. Let's go to the CHL. Okay? Just to show you the differences. 177 forwards, 106 defensemen, 34 goalies. That's a lot of players. OHL, 129 forwards, 69 defensemen, 31 goalies. QMJHL, 185 forwards, 100. So now you can see, okay, holy crap, I've got a lot of need up here. Excuse me. Why am I not moving guys up here to help out? Well, look at this guy. This guy's a D- for OHL. He'd be little to no help, even though he's a really good scout. He doesn't know the region that well. However, he knows the OHL, where he's currently stationed. He knows that really well. And you see scouts in region 0, that's because I'm currently trying to move this guy. So that's why it shows 0 here. He's currently there. So I'm going to exit out. And maybe now you can see, you can maybe make the association with Madden here as far as what you could do with this. So, I did not look at this guy to see what he's good at. QMJHL. You could also do OHL a little bit. You could also do the USA Central and East a little bit. So this guy's got a couple of different values. Okay, so that's pretty decent. So let's change him. Let's just look at changing him. And again, do the same thing. 13 scouts active. I pick a region, so I'll pick the CHL, and I can move this guy. And I can move this guy to the current assignment is the QMJHL. That's where he's currently at. I can move him to the OHL if I wanted to help out there. So you can move guys around based upon where the prospects are. And I can go look with this guy. I know I don't want to move him, but I can go look at the different leagues. So this area, the DEL, 11 forwards, 5 defensemen, 7 goalies. So if I'm looking for goalies, maybe I try and come here and see what's there. Okay? Or go to the Nordic region. There's 7 goalies here. Maybe I go here. 9 goalies here. Maybe I go here if I'm looking for goalies. Not with this guy, because you can see his region accuracy is E, so he'd be awful here. But just to give you an idea of what all you can do with scouting, and just picture this. I mean, North America. Picture pro scouts of the NFL, minor league. So just insert a generic minor league here. You could make up something like just I hesitate to use like the spring league because the spring league is actually endorsed by somebody, but something like the spring league or XFL. You wouldn't want to use something that's official, but just something like that as a minor league affiliate that you would scout players for. Or, heck, if you can get a license with them, how about the CFL? Boom, you can go scout the CFL to see if there's any players you want to bring over to your team. Or USA, your amateurs, and then you could break that down just like it's broken down here. You don't even have to go. You could go southeast, northeast, central, west. You could break it down by that, or you could just leave it like this with east, central, and west, and have a list of prospects there. And by the way, just to show you, let's go to USA East, where there's not a lot of prospects. Okay, this doesn't have a lot of prospects here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to scout specific players. This list is nothing but players in the USA East. And guess what? This generic scout ranking, okay, this tells me where they're picking at. So do I want to scout a guy that's 558, whenever there's only 250 picks? Probably not. But if I have some extra time and a guy that's good in the region, maybe I scout this guy just to see if maybe there's a diamond in the rough. Maybe this is a guy that just hasn't got a chance. And let's just pull up his stats. And that's another way I can make a judgment call as to whether or not I need to scout him. 46 games played, 16 minutes of ice time. He's got 14 goals and 11 assists. Now, the competition is slightly below average. But in 46 games played, he's got 14 goals and 11 assists at a +5 at 16 minutes game. This guy has 25 points in 46 games. Now, it's not the same as that guy that I looked at earlier, which I'll go pull up. Just kind of remember this, okay? Remember just these numbers. Jonathan Tennell, 14 goals, 11 assists. I'm going to exit out, and I'm going to go look. Was it WHL? I think it was WHL. I think. Let me see if I can find the guy. Perfect. Stan Coven. The guy we looked at the very first thing. The guy we've scouted. 56 games played, so he's played more games. Same competition level. 18 goals and 23 assists. That's 41 points. Remember our guy that's 558th pick in the draft? He's got 25 points. I could potentially pick him up with a 6th or 7th round pick, and he's got just as much production in the same type of quality league. Now, is it as much production as this guy? No. But for a 6th or 7th round pick versus a 1st round pick, maybe I skip on this guy, okay? Maybe I skip on Stankoven with a 1st round pick and go elsewhere, maybe a need, and then maybe I come here. Matter of fact, I'm going to scout that guy, actually. Let me see. Is it Tennell? Okay? Maybe I scout this guy because he's got 25 points. It's not quite the same production, but with a 6th or 7th round pick, I'm using a lot less draft capital to get this guy, and looking at his stats, that's a guy I may want. That's a guy that may fit this squad. So you know what? I want to add him to the assignment, potential comparison, and you can see he pops up on the list over there on the right-hand side. So I can add to this list, and you note now it's May 19th is the finish date for this guy. So, yeah, I want to scout that guy. Okay? Maybe look at versus this guy. This guy's done nothing. Okay? This guy has done nothing. He's had 10 minutes of ice time a game. He's done nothing. I don't know what he is. Okay? This guy. It could be something. Now, it might not be the best prospect in the world. He might end up being maybe a top 9, maybe a bottom 6 guy. He might end up being the prospect that he lists to be at 558th overall. But if you look at his goals and assists, you look at the stats that are provided from scouting, which is something Madden sorely needs, is stats for players during the season, so I can get an idea of how good this player is against certain levels of competition. And it wouldn't be hard to add this kind of stuff. That combined with what I see from him, like shot utilization, character, work ethic. This guy's a hard worker. That's the kind of guy I want in that bottom 6 area. I want a guy that's going to get out there, work his butt off, and keep the puck out of the net. Okay? Now, NHL ETA is 5 years out. I mean, do I care? It's a prospect. I mean, in this game, you go up to 25 years. Obviously, in an online franchise setting, 5 years would be like, we'll be on Madden 23 or the next Madden by the time this guy is good. So there would be some modifications for how fast a guy could get up to speed. But, I mean, these kind of things help make these players tangible and actual feel like players versus just feel like, well, what Mr. Tennell's face looks like, just a blank slate. So that's how scouting, I feel like, could definitely improve Madden, not only from an immersion standpoint as far as seeing those stats pop up, seeing them being able to change where your scouts go, who they scout, but also giving that engagement for players to get on the system and do the work and put in the work. And putting in the work means that you see results at the end and you see a better draft in the long run, which is a huge thing, especially for those guys that aren't great on the sticks and are always picking high in the draft. Being able to go in there and maybe bully up a draft and really get good at drafting, you can hang your hat on that. And that's something that those lower tier players would really eat up, and that's where that engagement level puts in because they put in the work. They should get the reward for the work. That's the thing. That's pretty much all I have on scouting. I could talk a little bit about Fog of War in this setup, but I don't have Fog of War on this franchise, and I feel like it'd be confusing. Fog of War not only for Fog of War just affects draft classes. It always affects draft classes, so you never have 100% information on this. But you can extend Fog of War to players, and that is something I did forget to do. I did forget to go look at Victor Hedman. Remember the first overall pick in the draft was compared to Victor Hedman. Victor Hedman plays for if he's still there. Yeah. Okay, so this is the comparison point for the number one pick in this draft is Victor Hedman. Victor Hedman's a 91 overall, elite level, top 2 defenseman in this league. Yeah, I'm okay with that. Let's take a look at his stats over the years. Yeah, 45 points, 55 points, 54 points. Yeah, I'm okay with a defenseman getting near a point per game. That's pretty doggone good, to be quite honest with you. If I got Victor Hedman or close to Victor Hedman out of my first overall pick, I'd be a pretty happy camper. I would be a pretty happy camper. Let's take a look at his attributes real quick. You know, this is and look, you can see his draft selection. 2009 first round, he was the second overall pick. So, first overall pick is Leach in this draft, and he compares favorably to this guy. That's a pretty fair comparison, I feel like. Right? I mean, that feels like a pretty fair comparison. So you can, if you know the player, I thought I was going to sign off. I'm going to go look at one more thing. Let's see. I'm going to go down here, Victor Hedman. Mark-Edward Vlasic. Okay? This guy compares to Mark-Edward Vlasic. All right, let's go find Mark-Edward Vlasic. I believe he's going to be on the Sharks here. He should be on the Sharks. Or unless they traded him. No, here we go. Mark-Edward Vlasic. Now, this guy's 34 now, so he's a little older, so he's regressed a little bit. But 84 overall for second overall pick is still pretty doggone good. And think about it, this guy's regressed. He's 34, so he is fallen off a little bit. Okay? So keep that in mind whenever we're comparing these guys. But yeah, this is a defensive defenseman. So a guy that's not necessarily going to put points on the board. So don't judge by the points. Judge by, where's my hits? Hits. Because this guy's a defensive defenseman. Okay? Hits and block shots. That's a lot of hits and block shots. I'm happy with that. Not a lot of hits, plenty of block shots. I must have been a lower in year. Yeah, okay. He hasn't had the greatest last couple of years, but San Jose has been a pretty bad team the last couple of years. Okay? But that just gives you an idea. You can go look, if you can find the guy in the league, you can kind of get a comparison and get a snapshot. Okay, at the best that player is going to be, he'll be close to this. And that kind of lets you further cement your choices whether or not you want to pick that player or not. So now for some of the older players, like some of the guys, they'll use past comparisons. So if you're not familiar with it, usually if they use a past comparison, like if it's a player that's not in the league anymore, like for example like Wayne Gretzky, Mario Lemieux, I'm trying to think of some other ones I've seen before, Jean Beliveau, I've seen Maurice Richard. If you see an old player name come up that you don't recognize, if you look them up and they say Hall of Fame, that's why they're using the name. So if you see a Hall of Fame comparison, yeah, that's probably a good player to get, just to let you know, okay? But that's what scouting can do for you. It can create a lot of engagement, a lot of time in the game as far as, you know, looking at things and looking at information. And for stat nerds like me, that's just a dream come true to be able to do that. And like I said, I didn't look much at Fog of War, but just the Fog of War for players and stuff. But just be aware that depending on how detailed you want to get with it, you can actually set it up to where teams other than yourself, you don't have accurate numbers of all these players. So you'd have to scout these players with pro scouts, just like you would amateurs. So that further kind of makes and muddies the water a little bit, and makes scouting even more important to find out if a trade is actually in your favor or not, or is even or not, or maybe is a guy worth going to get at this point versus what you think. Because if you see this guy and you see 89 overall, and you're like, okay, he's pretty good, but you start to see some dropping off of numbers, or some numbers don't add up, then you're like, do I really want to go get this guy? He might be on the downside, and that would be bad for me if I had to pay him $7.5 million for another 2 years. That's not a great thing for me. So scouting is a huge thing in this game. It can go into so much more detail than even I've shown today. Be aware of that. So the engagement and stuff we've talked about today, it could be even more so with other elements turned on. But scouting as a whole, I'm pretty much done. Let me know if there's anything I need to cover in more detail. Let me know if you have any comments about things I may need to go over more, whatever. Leave a comment down below. I'll respond to it as soon as I can. I appreciate you tuning in today, and hopefully we'll see some more videos. If you guys want other videos or about other details about how NHL can help Madden, just let me know. I'll be glad to record something. I appreciate you checking this out, and catch you later.